It's a energy that keeps us in a place of deep joy. And what we're yearning for is our return home to source. When you're in 3D, you know you're in 3D. But when you're in 5D, it's so enjoyable that you don't notice you're in 5D. Well, I highly recommend people announce when they go to bed, I'm waking up in 5D. We have a lot of light coming our way, so much light that it's going to be easier to be our best self than it used to be, that you are claiming a day of heaven on earth. What you're telling the universe is bring it on, but only bring this stuff. The things that we're really attached to generally are keeping us in 3D. In ancient times, the only people who could get up to that level would be the shamans or the mystics. And today there's a dispensation, so you literally have like a stargate right to the 11th dimension. You do not have to have mastery to move through the dimensions and get higher. What I want people to understand is just announcing to yourself, I'm done with karma. I don't need any more karma. I don't want any more karma. I'm claiming that I'm karma free is enough. The game will end when there are no more players. Will you be the first to leave or the last? When something happens that you don't like, just say, well, it's going to change. It's going to keep moving, because this is the year of the largest dramatic change in the history of the world.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of my new Mind, Body and Soul Conversations podcast, where we explore the transformative power of spirituality, personal growth and holistic healing. Each episode I sit down with authors, experts and practitioners who will bring fresh insights and wisdom to help you thrive in every aspect of your life. So let's get started with today's guest. Maureen Germain is a profoundly gifted and deeply attuned source channel, Akashic records guide, and transformative instructor. She's also the celebrated award-winning author behind the best-selling 5D series, including Waking Up in 5D, Mastering Your 5D Self, and her latest sensation, Living Your Best 5D Life, which is captivating readers everywhere. As a prolific and visionary Akashic Realm facilitator and 5D coach, Maureen has guided countless souls across the globe, helping them awaken, expand, and embody their fullest potential. Today, she joins us to share her wisdom on the Akashic Realm, living life in 5D, and activating your 8D Merkaba, and inviting us to step into our own 5D journeys. Welcome, Maureen, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for your nice announcements.
Thank you. So I do have your book here, your new book, Living Your Best 5D Life. And this is the third book of your 5D series, which includes your book, Waking Up in 5D, which was a big success. So how does this new book, Living Your Best 5D Life, build onto that one?
Oh, well, they're sequential. So what happens is, you get a certain amount of information in Waking Up in 5D. And it helps people recognize that our systems are moving. And then the next book expanded upon that. In this book, I gave lots of tools in terms of how to do quick meditations. I talk a lot about how everything is changing. There's a lot of new information from the Lords of Time. And we also have information about our oils that are very powerful for people. And I introduce the 8D Merkaba, and I teach people how to build one. And if you have the book and you haven't done this, you want to build one of these, because there is a giant one around each of us, and we can turn it on and get it spinning, and it takes us out of the matrix. And by being out of the matrix, you're not as easily influenced by outside energies.
And we can access the 5D.
They're the same thing, but just more information. It's like saying, what's the difference between Geometry 1 and Geometry 2? Well, they're essentially the same, but they're not the same at all.
Okay, great. So I think 5D is becoming a bit more mainstream, the concept, but I feel like there's still some confusion about it. So can you explain what 5D is and what's the difference between 4D and 3D?
Sure. 5D is the environment or energy that allows us or invites us to operate at our most evolved self. It's a energy that keeps us in a place of deep joy. It doesn't mean there's not free will. We have lots of choice in 5D. I'll come back to that. In 3D, this is the world we've been living in where negativity has been allowed. And a lot of people don't think about this, but why would Source allow negativity? And the answer is because it expanded the database. Sickness created doctors. Doctors created knowledge. And so this increases Source itself. If Source is already everything, how could it increase? And the answer is we pretend that we're not the highly evolved beings that we are. And so in 3D, we yearn for this place of peace. And what we're yearning for is our return home to Source. Now, in 3D, we can elevate ourselves to the point where we slide into 5D. So what happened to 4D? 4D is a place of transition. I call it the nexus. So if you think about an hourglass, that nexus is pretty narrow. Now, there are certain beings that have created a wider nexus. So nowadays, if you are sliding between the dimensions, it's a little easier. It's not so narrow. What's in 4D? Your high emotions. You still have polarity in 4D. You still have the elements of right and wrong, good and bad, but they're more extreme. So when you find yourself in a really depressed state, you're in 4D. When you are in a really super joyous state, you're in 4D, but you can also slide into 5D. And 4D and 5D are very close together, very close together. They're so close together that you can slide into 5D from fourth dimension very easily. So 4D is a transition zone. It's a place where we go to get somewhere else. It's not a place we hang out. So it's like the airport or Grand Central Station in New York. It's a place that you would never go to spend the night, but you go there because you want to go somewhere else.
Okay, great. And you were talking about free will, that we do still have free will in 5D. Can you?
So think about your favorite grocery store, and they have lots of things that you know are good for you and things that are not so hot for you. And let's say potato chips are bad for you. Maybe you have, health issues and you just can't eat too many of them. So in your favorite store in 5D, those chips don't exist and you don't miss them. It's not that they're not there and you wish you had them. They're not there and you don't notice because you don't miss them. In 5D, when you make a choice, you have lots and lots of choices, but the choice to do the not God choice doesn't show up. So think of having someone come to your door, and maybe it's someone you know, but you weren't expecting. So you invite them in, you offer them a glass of water or a tea or coffee, whatever. You wouldn't think of making them stand there at the door. You'd invite them in. So that matrix of knowing the right thing to do when someone comes to your door is 5D's vibe. You always know the right thing to do. You always know the right thing to say. You're not going to open your mouth and stick your, to say something hurtful because it's not in your choices. But you can still say plenty of choices, plenty of things, but the choice that's hurtful or harmful is gone.
It's never there because we're more connected to Source in 5D.
You can connect with the Source when you're in 3D, but in 5D, you are more of your divine self.
Okay. And do we shift between dimensions naturally? Like during the day, we can shift in between multiple times?
Yes. Yeah. And that's a really good way to look at it. It's not like getting a driver's license where once you have it, you can drive anytime you want. It's more like, I don't have a car. I need to get a car. I need to rent a car. So
Yeah.
So uh, we slide from 3D to 5D and back, sliding through fourth in the process many, many times a day, as you state. And it's interesting because when you're in 3D, you know you're in 3D. But when you're in 5D, it's so enjoyable that you don't notice you're in 5D. But then if somebody comes along and creates an uproar, chaos, and now you're back in 3D, I was so blissful back there. And that energy is now noticeable. Oh, now I notice the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what are the main tools that you would recommend to people to reach and maintain a 5D state?
Well, I highly recommend people announce when they go to bed, I'm waking up in 5D. It does make a difference. I have a favorite closing phrase that I'll say when we get close to closing, but I'll also say now, and that is, I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I am in contact with and everyone I'm in contract with. And what that does is it covers our conversation, but it covers my webmaster who I might not talk to today, you see? And the day of heaven on earth is this heavenly day, the 5D day. And I had a very interesting experience where I made a statement like that, and then I came home to a bunch of chaos. It was all handled gracefully. I came back to the airport, got back on the plane, and I'm sitting there thinking, how did all that happen? How did all of that craziness resolve so easily? And I was reminded, well, you asked for a day of heaven on earth. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to do that every time I have a chock-a-block day. The second time I asked for a day of heaven on earth, I thought, I'm not waiting till I have a busy day. I'm going to ask for this every day. And so can everyone here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful intention to set, even like when you wake up. It's like a ritual, and I feel like it's a very helpful ritual and intention to set every day. I even did that today as well. So,
Right. Very nice. And there's lots and lots of tools that we have at our disposal. Number one, we in the year 2025, we have a lot of light coming our way. So much light that it's going to be easier to be our best self than it used to be. That's one. Another part is a lot of the negativity is being cleared out. There are dark energies that try to sway us into behaviors that we regret. And there's fewer of that energy. There's less of that energy than that was there before. And then proactively, when you announce, like we just talked about, that you are claiming a day of heaven on earth, what you're telling the universe is bring it on, but only bring this stuff. It's like when you go into a restaurant and you say, I don't eat bread, or I'm allergic to wheat or gluten. They don't bring you anything that's made like that. If you say, I don't eat meat, they're not going to offer you any meat. So when you announce to the universe, I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth, you're literally pushing everything else away and saying, bring on the day of heaven on earth. And everything else, go away.
exactly. Yeah. And you did mention like everything that brings that negativity into our lives. And you do mention in your book that being in 5D is a frequency choice. And I found that really interesting because we are reminded that we have choice, like we have freedom of choice to live in 3D or 5D. But there are patterns and beliefs that keep us in 3D. And what is your advice to help us break those patterns and beliefs and release ourselves from those things that keep us in 3D?
The things that we're really attached to generally are keeping us in 3D. So when you find yourself, oh, I just can't live without my coffee or my TV show or whatever it is, you're claiming that that's your preference to be in 3D. Now, there's 5 things that are so common in our modern world that the angels have identified for me habits that we need to break in order to pull ourselves out of mass consciousness. And when we fall into these habits, we're pushing ourselves into mass consciousness. And I'll give you an example. So many people like to have a cup of coffee before they start their day. And that ties you into mass consciousness because everybody has a cup of coffee. Not everyone, but many people. And what you can do is, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have your coffee. It just means you maybe start out with a cup of tea or a glass of juice and you wait a while so you're not in sync with everyone else marching to that drummer. The same is true with the TV news or the newspaper. Another thing that pulls you into 3D is wearing a watch. How many people wear a watch? How many people have the iWatch, the iPhone watch? And what that does is anchor you into the matrix. So what you want to do is start practicing. Okay, so what time do I want to get up? Do I absolutely need to get up at this time? And then you set an internal alarm. You ask your angels to wake you up. I don't do this now because I don't travel that much. But when I was traveling, I made a practice so that I could tell people it's possible, so that I'm doing it too. And the practice was to not ever use an alarm clock. So I would get myself up in the morning and go to my job. When I had flights, I would always wake up on time. One time, I had worked at my day job all day, and then I was leaving for the weekend to teach a bunch of seminars. And I'm working on my notebook that I use as a resource, and I'm kind of blissed out, I'm just having a really nice time reviewing the material and being in that zone. And I look up at the clock and it's 1:30 in the morning. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got a 6:00 flight I've got to get on. I've got to go to bed now. So I was already packed. This was the last thing I was doing. So I tucked my book in the suitcase, got everything ready, got in bed. And at 6 a.m. sharp, I woke up. Now, I had said to Archangel Michael, wake me up on time and in plenty of time to catch my flight. I did not name a time. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, now I've done it. I wonder what's going on. So I get to the airport and I can scramble pretty fast and I'm close to the airport. And when I got there, the clerk said to me, your flight was canceled. And she put me on another flight. I didn't have a stopover. I actually arrived at my destination an hour early. And I got 2 hours extra sleep that I wouldn't have gotten if I had set an alarm to be there at a certain time.
Wow.
Because I didn't say what time I wanted to wake up. I said I want to wake up on time and in plenty of time to be on
to catch a flight.
And it was fine.
That was incredible. Yeah.
So what happens is anything that mass consciousness does, you want to unhook. So, for example, in America, the football games are mass consciousness, and then the Super Bowl is really big mass consciousness. People have parties around Super Bowl, and so those are big blocks of energy that when you fall into, you get programmed. When you're not participating in that, then you can be outside of the, quote, programming. So it kind of sits like a matrix around humans, around the earth, and some of the work we do pulls us outside of that matrix, so we're not impacted adversely.
Exactly. And you do mention in the book that even like choosing what to see, what to watch and what to listen to, like the kind of music that you listen to and that subliminal messaging that is there. And I've been doing that for... Yeah, sorry.
There are subliminal messages in some um, products, and they were outlawed in television broadcasting. But they can be used proactively if you want to get a subliminal tape that programs you for healthy things. And I have one meditation that I created in a subliminal way, but I start out by reading it. And this is what the good programs do. They'll tell you the statement, they'll say it while the music is playing, and the statement is here and the music is here. And then gradually it shifts, and then the music is loudest and the statements fall behind. But you know in your consciousness what's being programmed. So that being said, but certain kinds of music will actually drive your energy downward. Well, you don't want to do that. You don't want to, push your energy down if you're trying to be fifth dimensional. So certain kinds of music are basically off limits. You choose that they're off limits. I mean, I'm not saying you can't listen to them. I'm saying if this is what you want, it's like when you're working with a trainer and you say to the trainer after training, well, let's go out for donuts. He's going to look at you and say, yeah, if you,
Are you sure?
If you want to keep with me, you're not eating any more donuts,
Yeah. No, but that's a very good advice, because that's something that I've been doing, especially like the news and all of that stuff. It's so much negativity and it can produce so much fear. So that's something that I feel like everyone or whoever wants to should do it, because it really is a big difference. It's just choosing what you listen to and what you watch, and it does make a big difference in that sense, I feel like.
Absolutely. And what happens is then your energy is uplifted all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Even reading books that really help you, like yours, it's really fascinating to feed your mind with things that really uplift your energy, like you said, and your consciousness, and not feed on that fear that I feel like keeps us in 3D as well. Right. Is that correct?
Right, because the lower vibrational art, music, and so on keeps you locked into 3D, just like an argument keeps you locked into 3D, or having your mind go in circles or ruminating about something someone said or something that you heard. And these things can trip you up without even you realizing it. It's very easy to fall into that. And so part of stepping up into 5D is doing simple things like having your Wi-Fi on a router. Now, if you live in an apartment, you can't control that, but you could put an energetic Faraday cage around your bed and around your body. You can drink water that's specially made that doesn't have fluoride in it, because fluoride will shut down your pineal. You look at the toothpaste you buy and don't buy fluoride toothpaste. You buy organic when you can, and all of these things, because the pesticides and all the chemicals that are being broadcast in the world can hold us down and hold us back. And I created a guided meditation called the Golden Bowl. And it literally was an inference to a gold-colored bowl, like this, but bigger. And this bowl sits around your head. And it's actually the ring of your sinuses that causes this bowl to exist. And this ring of your sinuses is a resonator that makes it easier for you to connect with Source.
Oh, great. And that's available in your app, Illuminate. Right. Is that correct?
Yeah, the app Illuminate is free. And that particular meditation is won an award, Best of the New Meditations that came out the year it came out. So why did I put it in the free version? Is because I want everyone to have it.
Yeah. And you do have a lot available there free. So everyone who wants to check it out, I think it's a great thing to do, because it's many resources there that can help as well, that you don't even have to pay for. So you do talk in your book about calling in your dragons. So how does connecting, how does it help you connect and align with them?
The dragons, calling the dragons gives us clarity. It helps us find our way. So the dragons are good for publishing and writing, if you're into that. The dragons are good for directions on the road. I've had them take a string of lights and make them all green till we get past, 10 blocks down the road. I've heard stories of dragons stopping traffic for someone so he could pull in. Amazing stuff. So the dragons are very helpful, and they want to help. They were in a higher dimension for a while because there was a big effort to take them out. When the church, the Catholic Church, started massaging the truth, the dragons were driven out because dragons would help you see those guys are making it up. Do you understand?
Yeah, because of the clarity. They gave you clarity, yeah.
If you had dragons helping you, you would, it's like, this may not have happened to you, but have you ever looked at a newspaper headline and think, they made that up. That's not true. Or heard something on the radio and that's baloney. That's not true. So,
yeah.
So, we find that the dragons will help us find our way faster. So they're back in the reality. People can call in their dragons. They can ask their dragons to work with them. And they really ought to ask. It's not like it's a for sure thing. So you ask the dragons to help you, and you ask the dragons to work with you. And the energy of the dragons is such that it's very special. It's so special that if they work with you and they give you their name, you don't tell anyone. It's your dragons giving you your permission to call them. And it's not to be shared. Yeah, it's very special.
That's interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting.
Book,
and
in the first book, Waking Up in 5D, we actually did teach people how to call in their dragons. We talked a lot about how when I was writing that chapter, all these dragons showed up, even a chalk drawing on my sidewalk. It's really sweet.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So like I said, in your book, you have so many tools that I couldn't even talk about them all in this interview. But you did mention that, and you do mention the Merkaba. So we talked about that in the beginning a little bit. So you do explain how activating your 8D Merkaba, and you do have the meditation written here in your last chapter, contributes to self-healing and a better quality of life. Could you just explain, what is the Merkaba for people who don't know what it is, and what's the difference between 8D Merkaba?
Okay, so this is a replica of what the Merkaba looks like in its shape. So it's two tetrahedrons. You can kind of see the two pyramids, and they're nested in the middle of each other. So they produce what's called a star tetrahedron. And the traditional 17 breath Merkaba is based upon this shape around your body. So what I'm showing you, this little model, is very tiny because everyone's star tetrahedron is, a few inches taller than their head and a few inches lower than their feet. So it's substantial in size. So this is the 17 breath Merkaba that you spin one way and then you spin another way, and a third one remains stationary. So it's built on 3 of these double tetrahedrons. then the 8D Merkaba it starts out with this information, and then you move into what's called an icosahedron. Now, if you look at this, you can see the pentagon here. And if you look at another way, you can see the triangle here, you see? And so the two shapes, the icosahedron and the dodecahedron, so the icosahedron, it's hard to see all the shapes here because it's, the way the camera. And then the dodecahedron looks like what? Where's my dodecahedron? Here we go. Looks like this. And this, you can see the 5 sides.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this shape and this shape nested in the phi ratio, which ends up looking like this. So this moves beyond the speed of light. So the instructions on how to do the meditation are in the book. And the big caution that I was told to give people when I released this was build one before you try to do it. Because when you build it, and you build all these crosses in the phi ratio, and I'm going to talk about the phi ratio in a second. When you build these, what happens is your consciousness takes it in. You get understanding of the vibe it holds. And so now let's back up and say, well, what is phi? Now I have a great big calipers here, but phi is represented by a relationship of a smaller to a larger. So in the case of humans, we have a relationship that is in all the bones of the body, but it's so much nicer when you can see it in a person's hand. Okay?
Yeah.
So this marks my wrist bone. Let me take this down. It got too big. And this marks the top of my little finger. Now, if I go to my elbow, we'll get the same thing. So if I go to my elbow here, I can do the same thing here, you see? And you can see where my wrist is, right? So what this helps us to understand is phi is source code in creation. There's planets are in phi to the sun. We have the phi ratio in plants. We have the phi ratio in all the bones of the body, going bigger or smaller. And when you make these two important geometric shapes in phi to each other, this becomes a very powerful energy field which can break through the matrix.
Wow. Yeah, so a powerful meditation and practice for sure. And I do want to mention as well, because you do have a wonderful book, which is the Opening the Akashic Records. And I feel like sometimes that might be some difficulty or confusion about the two, about Akashic Records and 5D. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Sure. The Akashic Records are a body of knowledge similar to a library, but it's alive, which means it's constantly moving, kind of like a wave pool. And it's in the 11th dimension. So humans are learning to exist in 3D and 5D, moving to 5D. And the 11th dimension is far removed from where we are. And the energy of that field of energy is dramatically different. In ancient times, the only people who could get up to that level would be the shamans or the mystics. And today there is a dispensation, so you literally have like a stargate right to the 11th dimension. You do not have to have mastery to move through the dimensions and get higher. You literally have a dispensation. It's like putting on your 5D garment and going into the stargate and coming out in the 11th dimension. And what this does is allows you to see a bigger version of what's going on. So the records themselves are a body of knowledge, And the body of knowledge is living because you and I are living. When I'm thinking about, let's say I'm thinking about going on vacation to Mexico, and then maybe I even buy a ticket. So already that energy is forming in the Akashic records. Now, let's say one of my kids gets sick, so I decide I'm not going to go. And I cancel that ticket, so that energy then pulls back, and a new pattern appears. Sometimes when you're debating between going to this location or that location, both patterns appear. And one may feel stronger, one may feel bigger, but at the same time, the information in the records is not predictive. It is a reflection of choices that you are presently making and helps you make better choices. And what that means is if you understand a situation fully, you're going to be much more compassionate than you would be if you didn't understand. If you have a friend that always shows up late, and then one day she stands you up, and she calls and says, I'm sorry I missed lunch. Or maybe she even forgets that she missed lunch. You call her, what the heck's going on with you? Or you might write her off and say, I'm never talking to her again. I'm tired of this being treated so poorly. And then you discover that she was in a car accident. That's why she didn't show up. Or some other reasonable reason that things happened the way they did. So what happens in the records is you get to see the much bigger picture. And a wonderful example that I have told many times is about a man who called about his daughter. And the daughter was a young woman in her early 20s, and he was a meditator, and he taught her to meditate. He taught her what he knew, but she was still very obnoxious towards him. And he wanted to know what was going on, or what could be done, or what the record keepers had to say. And they told him that they had been enemies in a previous lifetime, and that he had agreed to sponsor her. He was more evolved than she, and he had gone on to more spirituality, and he agreed to help her out. But she hadn't figured that out yet. And the record keeper said to him, and this is the nice thing about the records, they first answer the question. This is what happened. It's not karmic. You volunteered. And then they said, this may take a few years, and your job is to love her anyway, in whatever way you can. That's like the information that you didn't ask for, but that you needed to move forward. Yeah. And that's what the records will do for you. They give you information that helps you along your way. And he still has to choose to be loving and kind and send birthday cards. If you have an offspring that doesn't treat you very well, human nature is, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to buy him a birthday card anymore. They don't care. They don't want to hear from me. And what that does is reinforces what you don't want.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So just having that patience and just not giving up on that person. So that's beautiful. Yeah. And you did talk a little bit about, you did mention karma, and that's one of my questions. You have mentioned that there's no more karma in the traditional sense. What is that? What does that mean, and what are the implications in our lives to know that?
Okay, so it's very interesting. I was told this in 1995. That means I was told this 25 years ago. It's amazing. And I started teaching it, and I knew it was so, but I was out there all by myself, I'll tell you. So, and it's taken me a long time too, to really get the implications and to understand it. So first of all, what I want people to understand is just announcing to yourself, I'm done with karma. I don't need any more karma. I don't want any more karma. I'm claiming that I'm karma free is enough. It's a choice. Now, karma was an old system that helped people learn and grow from their experiences. So if I was cruel as a mom in a previous life, I might choose to be the child of a cruel mom in a current life so that I can understand what that feels like. And that's all it is. It's about feeling and experiencing these things. Now, when there's no more karma, it means there's no more scorekeeping. It means if you make a mistake today and you are willing to step into your power and forgive yourself and start a new day without anything in your way, you can. And it also means the burdens of the past, as a parent, I know I made plenty of mistakes. Most parents do. And some of them I seriously regret, but not anymore because I've cleared all that. So Sana Kumara said through me, the game is over. The game will end when there are no more players. Will you be the first to leave or the last? So the no more karma is the signal. The game's over. Are you going to hang there in the stadium hoping that something else starts or start a game yourself? Or do you want to exit the stadium and get on with the next game? And see, the thing is, Source itself, and whether you consider each of us part of Source or whether you think of one person as God, doesn't matter. Source itself has determined that there's been enough of this experiment to pull the plug. It's over. Completely over. And, it's a wonderful time because it means that we're being provided with the opportunity to make the leap to higher consciousness and to step out of polarity at the same time and stay in a body. That's never been done before. So the opportunities are here, and the way people are given with so much more light coming in, it's almost like a fait accompli. It's an amazing time to be alive. And even though at this particular cycle that we're in, we're having a tough time, and even though in this particular cycle we're being asked to reinvent ourselves, to let go of everything we valued and just reinvent everything, and that's really hard. On the other side of it, it's so much better. I had a friend who had a nice car, and it was getting old. It was maybe 10 years old, but it was a nice car, and she really loved it, and it had a lot of nice features. And when she let go of that car and bought a new car, she had to learn all the devices. How does this system work? What does she need to do to even turn it on? And so that's what we're being asked to do, to let go of even our favorite teddy bear in favor of getting something even better. And that is belief in yourself and belief in the universe that we really are in this magical time of transition. Because the reason people won't let go is because they're afraid they can't replace it. You say to yourself, okay, well, I'll let go of my old car, but is somebody going to buy me a new car? What am I going to do if I don't have a car? And so we're right away solve it instead of trusting. Well, what about the hover cars? Maybe the universe has a hover car in mind for you, and if you go without a car for a week or two, you'll appreciate your car, and then when the hover car arrives, you're going to be totally thrilled. So it's a magical, magical time. And for anyone who is suffering or in pain or struggling, tell yourself, this is just like basic training. We're getting ready, we're sharpening our skills, and we're letting go of everything that's in the way of being the divine, on the divine journey. So,
yeah. It's very powerful. Yeah, definitely. There's always a period of work and adaptation, and it's always a little bit difficult in the beginning, especially when we start seeing all these things that were interfering with us and keeping us down, and those limiting beliefs and patterns. But then we have the compensation afterwards. Like you were saying, we are moving towards that, and that's very uplifting to know and inspiring as well. Yeah. So what is something that our audience can start doing today to start adopting a 5D lifestyle, and what positive changes may they notice straight away? Before actually answering, because you did say something in your book, and I have it here, anything that is not fun or funny is not 5D. And that kept, that is like, for me, that's like the perfect concept of 5D for people to understand. So what advice would you give to people to start practicing, and the tools like that we talked about as well, but what are the things that they can start doing right now?
Well, I think your whole discussion about karma was really powerful. So as you think about those things, that there's no more karma, it kind of lifts your spirits, because you know God's not going to hold you accountable. No one's holding you accountable anymore for the BS you did when you were in your 20s, or the garbage you did when you were 15, or the stupid stuff you did as an adult. Nobody's keeping track anymore. And it doesn't mean there's not a record. What it means is they're not keeping track so that you have to replay it for yourself. It also means that whatever you're experiencing today could be that you opted in, like the man with the daughter. You didn't, it's not karmic. You opted in, and you're choosing to be part of the solution. So some of the discomfort you may be experiencing is the working out of issues in order to help others and to help yourself. The ability to see beyond the self and to announce to yourself, okay, I'm going to wake up in 5D. I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth. But what else? Well, I would say pay attention to the things you do that are mass consciousness oriented, and try to unhook from those. Try to unhook from the daily news. Try to unhook from the daily coffee. Try to unhook from wearing a watch. Practice and try to see what that feels like. You don't have to step into it 100% all the time, at least not at first, but you can dip your toe in the water. And as you dip your toe in the water, it's going to be so freeing. The other thing is to put yourself on some kind of a schedule where you're not on the web, where you're not online, and keep a sacred time that you're away from that. So walking in nature is hugely powerful. Your special water is hugely powerful. And these things we don't realize, but they do affect us. And so, get your devices that you use to antidote the cell phone energy and those kinds of things. That also will help uplift you to 5D. And of course, how do you eat? If you eat low vibrational food, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be carrying some of that low vibe. And today, for example, animals are fed antibiotics as part of their daily dose, and God knows what else they're given to help them grow fat or whatever. So even the idea of eating meat, although you might love your meat and you might love having your hamburger, there's so many good replacements that copy these tastes. Nowadays, there's no excuse. If you want to give up eating meat or you want to stop drinking alcohol, there's easy ways to do that. And finally, if you are in a rut of a habit, maybe you watch TV every night at 7 o'clock and you know you're in a habit, you're in a rut, but you can't seem to break yourself, then ask for help. Ask for help from your angels, ask help from your friends and your family. Can you call me at 7 so I don't turn on the TV? It's a simple thing.
Yeah.
Or you maybe make the phone call and you find somebody to talk to. So it's super important that we honor the patterns that we have and recognize them so that we can choose differently. We can choose otherwise.
And you even talk about ways to identify or recognize when you're in 5D. And one of them is when people, where there's something that's said badly about you and you kind of find it funny because you kind of dismiss it in a way because it's not true, or so essentially identifying that you're...
This is really powerful, and it's not it's for real. And when it happens, and it happened to you the first time, you're going to think later, that was really cool. So, um, um, my husband was showing me last night how to pour the water from the distiller into another piece of equipment. And he said, honey, when you get to this point, I had stopped in the middle and left something unfinished, and it's very obvious. And it goes here. And all I could do was laugh because he didn't say it in a mean way. He was showing me that he was helping me and that he was fixing or finishing my little project. And so what happens is when we are connected to source in 5D, and we are, and that's kind of what you were alluding to earlier, is this sense of being so plugged into source that you know you're loved. When you know that you're 100% loved, you don't need to take offense because everything's fine. The problem that we have is judgment, self-judgment, and projected judgment. So when we look at someone else and we say, well, I wouldn't have done that, even if you don't say that, but you're thinking it, then you're in judgment. And I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they said to me, you were in competition with that other teacher. And I said, no, I wasn't. And they said, yeah, you were, because you said you wouldn't advertise your stuff every 5 minutes. You would have waited till the end and given people a chance to get to know you. And they said, well, you were in judgment. I said, well, it's kind of a matter of ethics. So who was right? Both of us, because there is a level of judgment if I'm expecting another teacher who's teaching spiritual stuff to hold the same ethical standard that I do. But maybe that's not their standard. What I say to that, though, is in 5D, there's what I would call implied standards. Now, what would be wrong is for me to not be friends with this person or to choose to dismiss him or to talk trash about him, which I don't do. I like the person and we're pals. So it's an interesting experience to see something that's below your standard and to look at it and go, well, I don't think I'd do that. But hey, that's their thing. That's different than what I did, which was, point out, I can't stand all these advertisements. So
Yeah.
for each of us, we have things that will aggravate us or upset us. And when we're willing to recognize that the aggravation is really at me, I'm not mad at that person. I'm aggravated at me. I'm aggravated at me for maybe two reasons. The first reason might be, well, why did I take my time to listen to one more ad? Or it might be, why do I have to care so much what they do if there's something of value here? I'm so benefited, you see. So it's the way we look at it. So how do we do that? We change our perceptions. We say to ourselves, okay, in every situation, there's some bad and there's some good. I want to focus on the good, and that will help us stay in 5D.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And I do believe that what, like you said, is not judge. Sometimes we may confuse judgment with discernment, and it's important to have some discernment to know what is better for me and what isn't. Is not judging another person in that sense, or if a teacher isn't good for me, I'm discerning what is good for me and what isn't. But it's not criticizing or judging that teacher, for example.
The way to say that is it's not a match. Not
exactly.
to say it's
yes.
good, bad for me, but it's just not a match. And tomorrow it might be
exactly.
a match. Because we all know that we've encountered situations, people, books, etc., that we were turned off by when we first came across it.
Yeah.
And then later we pick it up and go, I wonder why I turned my nose up the first time. Because we weren't ready.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. So thank you so much. Time has been flying in the last hour. So we're starting a new year, 2025. And I would just like, if you have any advice, just a simple message or advice that you would like to give our audience for this new year.
Yes. In some parts of America, like Montana, Denver, people will say, if you don't like the weather, just stick around for 5 minutes. It's going to change. And that's 2025. 2025. So
25,
what I'm
yeah.
saying to you is when something happens that you don't like, just say, well, it's going to change. It's going to keep moving, because this is the year of the largest dramatic change in the history of the world.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Maureen. And before we end the chat, I would like to remind our viewers and listeners that you can find Maureen's social links and books and resources on the links below on the description box, or you can head to her website, practicalmystic.comi.io. Is that correct, Maureen?
Yes.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Maureen, for taking this time to be with me and for being with us and for all the wisdom that you just gave us. And Happy New Year. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this very first episode of Mind, Body and Soul Conversations. If you enjoyed our talk today, please consider subscribing, leaving your feedback and sharing this episode with someone who might benefit from it. Your support helps us reach more listeners like you. And don't forget to check out Maureen's books and resources linked down below. Until next time, sending you so much love and light.